Have you ever felt dismissed by someone, subtly or blatantly? Maybe they talked over you, minimized your feelings, or made you feel invisible in your own story. And what did you do? You either exploded in anger, or collapsed into silence. But here's what Carl Jung discovered, something that changes everything: both reactions feed the narcissist. You see, narcissists don't actually want to destroy you. What they crave is control. They push your buttons not to break you, but to dominate your emotional state. Because the moment you react, they win. But Jung uncovered a deeper psychological truth that gives you your power back. He said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. That sentence isn't just philosophy, it's a doorway. When someone triggers you, it's an invitation to look inward. To pause. To ask, what wound is being touched here? Instead of playing the emotional game, you reclaim your energy. Narcissists want to drag you into a loop, where your reaction keeps their control alive. But when you remain grounded, when you look within instead of reacting, you stop playing their game. And that's when something shifts. They may not like it. But they respect it. Because you're no longer easy to manipulate. You've stepped into something they can't touch, your own psychological authority. Have you ever felt trapped in a cycle, where no matter what you say or do, someone always manages to make you feel small, guilty, or just not enough? It's not weakness. It's not your fault. It's psychological control. And Carl Jung, father of analytical psychology, left behind a roadmap to break free from it. Let's start with the shadow self. Jung believed every person carries a shadow, the part of the psyche we reject or suppress. For narcissists, this shadow is too painful to face. So instead, they project it onto others. Onto you. And when you react, when you argue, defend, cry, they win. Because your reaction confirms that they have emotional power over you. But here's the twist, you don't have to fight to protect yourself. In fact, fighting is the trap. Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But not all transformation is healing. Sometimes, you're just pulled into their drama, and lose yourself in the process. So what's the solution? Not fighting. Not fleeing. But standing, calm and clear. There's a sentence that works like psychological judo. It doesn't attack. It doesn't trigger. It just ends the game. Starting today, I'm done having these kinds of conversations with you. It may sound simple, but it holds deep power on 3 levels. First, it creates absolute finality. No debate. No negotiation. Just a closed door, with grace, not aggression. Second, it cuts off the narcissist's fuel source. They survive on your emotional reactions. But when you stop feeding that chaos, they lose access to control. Third, it declares your psychological sovereignty. This isn't just a statement, it's a state of being. It's saying, I'm no longer available for emotional games. I choose peace. Many fail because they say the words while still clinging to hope that the narcissist will change. But as Jung reminded us, the unconscious hears energy, not words. If you say it but still want to be seen, heard, or validated, they'll sense it. And the manipulation continues. But if you've reached the point of true clarity, not from bitterness, but from awakening, it changes everything. No shouting. No proving. Just stillness. And that stillness terrifies them, because clarity is power. And power doesn't come from dominating others, it comes from no longer needing their approval to feel whole. There's something subtle, but incredibly powerful, that most people miss when trying to break free from a narcissist's manipulation: your internal energy when you say no. You could say the right words. You could even say them loudly. But if those words are charged with fear, anger, or a secret hope that the narcissist will finally understand, they will fall flat. Carl Jung once said, "The unconscious doesn't hear words, it hears energy." And narcissists, being emotionally intuitive manipulators, can feel when your energy doesn't match your words. They don't hear, "I'm done having these kinds of conversations," with their ears. They feel whether you mean it. They sense hesitation. They feel your emotional hook still searching for validation. And that's how they pull you back in, through guilt, blame, or accusations like, "You're selfish." This is the moment most people stumble, not because they said the wrong thing, but because they weren't solid within. Narcissists don't let go of emotional supply easily. When you unplug from the game, they panic. Jung described this as the collapse of the false self, the moment their carefully crafted strategies start falling apart. They may lash out, play the victim, or escalate their manipulation. But this is your test. If you can stay centered, not reacting, not explaining, just holding your boundary from a place of calm, something powerful happens. They'll either begin to shift, or they'll remove themselves from your life entirely. And either outcome is a gift. Because the truth is, you don't need someone's approval to feel peace. You only need your own. When you can stand in your clarity, with self-respect intact and no desire to win or fix the other person, that's when you become untouchable. You don't escape the narcissist through conflict. You transcend them through calm, conscious detachment. And in that quiet clarity, you finally reclaim your freedom. There's a quiet, almost invisible moment that can radically shift your inner world. It's when you say, "I'm no longer available for this kind of conversation." At first glance, it sounds like a boundary. But in truth, it's a sacred act of inner withdrawal. Not to escape, but to liberate yourself from the role you've played for too long, the role of the agreeable one, the peacemaker, the one who always tries to make others comfortable. Carl Jung called this the death of the compliant self, the inner part of us conditioned to seek approval, avoid conflict, and trade authenticity for acceptance. And here's the paradox, that niceness isn't always kindness. Sometimes, it's fear in disguise. Fear of rejection. Fear of not being liked. Fear of being too much, or not enough. Have you ever wondered, why do I say yes when I mean no? Why do I feel drained after every conversation where I held back my truth? Jung taught us that we unconsciously repeat what's familiar, even if it hurts, simply because it's familiar. And for many, the habit of people-pleasing is deeply rooted in old survival patterns. But when you say, "I'm done participating," you're not just refusing a toxic dialogue, you're breaking a generational loop. You're choosing peace over performance. You're choosing self-respect over approval. And from that moment forward, you're no longer seeking permission to be yourself. You are standing in your own clarity. And that is where real freedom begins. Here's a subtle but powerful truth: a narcissist can't manipulate you if you no longer participate in their game. Have you ever noticed how every time you argue, explain, or try to prove your worth, you end up feeling exhausted, like you're stuck in the same emotional loop again and again? That's not a coincidence. It's a pattern, a psychological cycle designed to keep you engaged, doubting yourself, and ultimately, drained. Carl Jung taught that we unconsciously repeat painful dynamics until we become conscious of them. And in this case, the pattern is engagement. You don't have to win against the narcissist. You only need to stop playing. When you calmly say, "I'm no longer available for these kinds of conversations," you're not just withdrawing your words, you're withdrawing your energy. No reaction. No defense. No blame. Just clear, steady detachment. That calm presence. It terrifies them. Because narcissists thrive on drama, reaction, emotional fuel. They need you to cry, to defend, to explode, so they feel powerful again. But when you stop feeding the fire, the game ends. You don't need to win the argument. You need to exit the loop. And that begins with one conscious decision: I'm no longer participating. You see, the moment you say, starting today, "I'm no longer available for these kinds of conversations," you're not just shutting down a narcissist. You're stepping into a new version of yourself. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And for years, maybe you've been stuck in loops, over-giving, over-explaining, hoping to be seen, heard, understood. But all along, you forgot one thing, your own clarity. Now you're waking up. You're not here to fix others. You're not here to carry someone else's emotional chaos. You're here to become so real, so whole, that only real people remain in your space. That sentence, it might sound simple, but it is a declaration of inner liberation. It says, I will no longer be the fuel for someone else's dysfunction. I will no longer abandon myself just to keep someone else comfortable. Yes, some people may leave. But if someone could only stay when you were quiet, submissive, or invisible, then their absence is not a loss. It's a clearing. It's space for peace. From this point on, you're not just surviving. You're living aligned. And if this message spoke to something deep inside you, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Someone out there may need these exact words to begin their healing. And if you want to keep walking this path of clarity, growth, and emotional freedom, make sure to subscribe. This journey is far from over. But the most beautiful part? You've already started it. Because freedom doesn't always look loud. Sometimes, it sounds like 5 simple words, I'm no longer available for this. And in that silence, you finally come home to yourself.